Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to a very quick series I am doing called Brush Ridge Bobsleds. The new vintage DLC just came out, and this is one of my very favorite DLCs that they have come up with so far. So I wanted to go ahead and give it a try. Everyone else was doing sort of pier amusement parks and that sort of thing, and I do love the feel of them. Everyone was doing a really great job with them, but I wanted to try something a little bit different, and I took my inspiration from the Flying Turns bobsled coaster that was included in this DLC. So what we have here is going to be just actually something that mimics an actual bobsled run, but it's a mountain, obviously. So we're just going to do, in this video, we're going to do some track work. We'll do most of the landscaping and so forth, probably 70% of it. We'll finish it up in another episode and do the station and all that. So I'm anticipating that this will be a really quick build, no more than 2 to 4 episodes at the very most. And I'll mix it in with some of the other stuff I'm doing just to have something new to do. So with all that being said, one of the things I really wanted to highlight here is that I love the winter. I absolutely love the winter. I love the snow. I love the cold. I love everything about it. So I always really enjoy making a winter themed coaster. And in fact, I did make one once before in No Limits. I'll go ahead and put a card up at the top of the screen right now if you want to check that out. It's the very first coaster I made with FVD. The very first one actually that I made that was halfway decent, and it's called Black Diamond, if I remember correctly. It's a B&M invert, and it's themed around sort of skiing down a mountain. I really like the way that came out, and thus far I'm liking the way this one is turning out too. So winter is definitely my thing, and it's working out well for me here. I wanted to give you a little bit of a history of these rides. I know a lot of people play Planet Coaster. Some of the people who watch are coaster enthusiasts like me. Some of them are just gaming enthusiasts. I did want to give you a little bit of history about this ride, though. Originally, these rides started coming out towards the end of the 20s. They were developed by John Miller and Charlie Bartlett, if I remember correctly. And then PTC also started, I think they started working with Miller and creating a few of their own. And I think about roughly maybe 10 or so were built. But unfortunately, the Depression brought about the end of this pretty much because PTC, I think, sold one to Euclid Beach at some point during the Depression. But and there were a few more built after that, I believe, for the World's Fair in New York. But they never really caught on. They were never really like huge rides. So, and then of course in the 80s, Intamin and Mack started rebuilding them. I think Arrow had one. I don't think they ever built it, but I know that they definitely were working on a version. And then of course we have the infamous Knoebels version, which took them forever to get up and running. It was the first one built of wood in decades. I have been on ones by Intamin. I've been on the Mack one at King's Dominion, and I've been on the one at Knoebels. And they're fun rides. They're not really that extreme, although there was one built by Charlie Bartlett, if I remember correctly, called Lake Placid Bobsleds, that was at Palisades Park in New Jersey, and this one was known for being very extreme. You can see from the picture here that it was really tall, and the turns were extremely, or the trough itself was very wide, just because of the speed it had going on. Allegedly, it had a tunnel over the lift because of its height. I think it was over 100 feet, if I remember correctly. So like I said, I've ridden a few of them. They're all really fun to ride. I especially like the Mack version the best. And, well, aside from the one at Knoebels, that one's awesome. I wish it had been just a little bit taller, and the capacity is really low on that. You either have to get on that first thing in the morning, or you're going to be waiting in line for about an hour because it's definitely a slow loader. It takes some time there. But it's a fun ride. It's really fast and just really a lot of fun. So one of the things I did with this build was I first started researching actual bobsled tracks, and I discovered that most of them have a grade of about, average grade of about 9 degrees. So originally I was making this much larger, and I had it going downhill the entire time about 9 degrees, and it was hauling ass by the time it got to the end. So I ended up making it much shorter, much more compact, which really went with the idea anyway, because I was trying to do something small here, and for some reason I got it way out of scale. So I ended up making it about 85 degrees. It's going downhill for most of the ride. It does go a little bit fast. I guess I could turn the friction parameter up actually, but I'm okay with it. It's just a fun little build, something I wanted to do, and I'm not going for ultra realism here, obviously. So we're going to leave it as is. So you can see basically what I'm doing is just building up the scenery around it, or the landscape around it, trying to make it look as much as possible as if it's sunken down in the ground. It's part of the natural terrain. And then of course we've got this nice little underground tunnel that it goes into here. I'm actually pleased with the way this came out. It was a lot of fun so far to build, and I like the way these I'm doing a new technique here. I've heard people do this before, and I never really tried it out. Usually if I wanted a sort of a mountainous look to something, I would put a lot of boulders or something like that, but I'm trying to get comfortable with using the roughen up the terrain a little bit and then paint it, which ultimately I think makes it look a little bit more realistic. And I also think it tends to, depending on how you build the mountain, it kind of gives that forced perspective vibe, because this almost looks like that point right there that I was working on there almost looks like the Matterhorn or something like that. So I will be using this. I looked at this as a way to experiment with that technique, because in my build for Sing Fu Shan, I'll be making I'll be doing quite a lot of terrain work in terms of trying to make mountains and so forth, and I want to make them look as realistic as possible. So I'm definitely going to have to work on that and see what I can do with get better with the terrain tools. I'm pretty good with them already, but I definitely am going to have to work on that to improve. So we can look at this as an experiment to do that as well. So, like I said, I'll do most of the terrain work here, just because most of my videos tend to be feature a lot of terrain work, and so I didn't want to subject you all to another video of just me doing terrain work over and over and over. So I try to do as much as possible here, and it's going to be fairly simple. We're just going to have a bunch of spruce and fir trees around, some rocks, some brush, obviously, since it's a brush ridge. The name for that, by the way, comes from where I am from in West Virginia. I was born in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, and I looked through the names of some of the ridges and mountains and so forth in that area, and I discovered one called Brushy Ridge. So I thought, well, I'll use that as a name for this. So there you go. That's how we got Brush Ridge, and I like the way it kind of rolls off the tongue, Brush Ridge bobsleds. So we're just putting some rocks down. We'll put I use some of those creosote bushes to kind of give the feeling of the brush that's dried up from the winter, but it'll come back to life sooner or later. I did actually grab some of those, I think they're narcissus flowers that they had in there. I was thinking about planting a few of those around just for some pops of color, because some of these bulbs really do come out in the middle of winter, like January, February. Some of those will start blossoming. I can't remember if it's narcissus or not. There is a yellow one. I can't think of the name of it right now, unfortunately, but there is a yellow one that will be blooming in the middle of like snow. I've definitely seen that myself, but I don't think I'll do that. I think for once I'm not going to use a lot of flowers and all that. I'm just going to go with the natural sort of winter landscape and get that to work for me. A new feature, by the way, in this DLC is the ability to group these trees, or group non-building objects, and save them as a blueprint, which is great. I think everybody loves this. I think everyone was waiting for that, and you can see it really helps when you're just trying to do that sort of background landscape. Of course, you could do that before with just by using a building piece and doing it, but it's nice to do it this way. It makes it a lot simpler. So I did that just to make the overall forest feel in the background. I'll probably put a few more down just to kind of fill it in a little bit, but otherwise there's not too much more to do with the landscape. Once I start building the station, I'm going to try to do a really elaborate station and do my best on that. I've gotten much better with building techniques for buildings and so forth, so I think that's going to turn out well. So other than that, that is about it for this build. I'm just going to finish up placing some trees around, and I will show you a few glamour shots so we can get an idea of what the ride looks like, and we'll take a quick ride from the riders, or looking back at the riders. I'm going to save the POV for this until we actually finish it up. But it's not going to take too long. Like I said, it's only going to be maybe 2 or 3 more episodes after this. So we'll be finished up soon enough. So that's it for this build. I will talk to you next time. Enjoy the ride.
You